What is going on, guys? I'm FlexZero, your tech hero, and this is part 2 of building the ultimate lian-li Razer Edition PC. By the end of this video, this PC will boot up, and if by the off chance it doesn't, well, this channel will just be stuck in limbo forever and you'll probably never see this video. But if you are watching this right now, then that means at the end of this video, this PC actually did boot up. Who would have guessed? So in the last video, you see me install the XT AIO with the 3 Corsair fans on the top of the case, and also the 3 Corsair fans on the side of the case. We didn't get that much done, but we tried our hardest. Now for part 2 of this 3-part series, we will be taking all the internals from my old boring looking Razer PC and putting them in the new amazing looking Razer PC. So you might be wondering why my old case has an RGB motherboard with a tinted glass. You know, I mean, wouldn't I want to show this off to everybody? Well, you're about to find out why it has a tinted glass. Don't judge me, I built this a long time ago. Now, as you can see, my cable management skills just weren't that great, or I didn't want to be bothered with it, so I got a tinted glass. But in my defense, there really isn't a lot of room to work with in this case. However, I promise that the cable management in the new case will be impeccable. You might have also noticed that I'm using a GTX 970 for the graphics card. But FlexZero, you're the tech hero, so why are you using a 970 for your graphics card? Well, you see, back in my day, young Padawan, graphics cards were extremely overpriced, kind of like they are now, and I was fine with just being able to play games on medium settings. I also played the majority of games on PS4. I will, however, be getting the RTX 3070 or 3080 when it's not overpriced and not out of stock. So the components that will be transferred to my old PC to my new PC is the Intel i7 CPU, the GTX 970, the power supply, the SSD and the hard drive. The components that won't be going in my new PC is the old AIO and the old RAM. All of the old PC parts will most likely be repurposed, as I do plan on building a streaming PC. So I guess the first thing we should do is probably remove the old AIO from the motherboard, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I took everything that needed to come out the old PC and put it right here on the table. We got the graphics card, the RAM, the capture card that we won't be using anymore, and the bare bones motherboard with the CPU. I got the CPU all cleaned off and it's ready for the new AIO. As for the RAM, we won't be using the Vengeance LPX anymore. We will be using the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro. And we're going to be using 2 16GB sticks running at a blazing fast 3600 megahertz. I really think that these RAM sticks, the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro in particular, will look amazing in this PC. So to set up these fans, we're going to be using a Corsair Commander Pro and also a lighting node core. We only got 6 fans, so we only need 1 Commander Pro and 1 lighting node core. If we were going with 9 fans, we would need 1 Commander Pro and 2 lighting node cores. So basically you can look at it this way. The Commander Pro is going to give the fans power, while the lighting node core is going to give the fans RGB. So you see right here it's labeled 1 through 6. That's how we're gonna plug the fans in, and make sure you plug them in order. Right here is fan number 1, plugs in real easy. Let's go to the next one. All right, so we got all the power to the fans plugged in. Let's plug in the RGB. All right, so we got everything in the case. We got the new AIO hooked up. We got the new RAM in there. Everything should be hooked up. Hopefully it powers up. So let's go and flip the switch in back of the power supply. All right, we got lights on the motherboard. So I know at least the motherboard's getting power. So I guess all that's left is to see if it turns on. It's not turning on. All right, so I pressed the start button from the motherboard and it did turn on. However, I think we have another problem. So that last clip was from a couple days ago and it all went really downhill from there. What happened after that wasn't really recorded, but I'll do a story time with some B-roll. Now the PC not turning on was a quick fix. I just had to find the right motherboard header for the power switch. When I got that working, everything booted up, but I realized my 2 GB hard drive wasn't showing up. So I looked around the back and I seen it wasn't plugged into the SATA cable. Easy fix, right? Wrong. It just so happened that when I bought this power supply a few years ago, I must have misplaced or threw away the extra SATA cables that it came with. This 850 watt power supply came with 3 SATA cables, but I only had 1. So now I'm thinking, what can I do? What can I do? So I go on Amazon and I see that they make SATA extension cables. I was about to order one, but I changed my mind because it seems a little sketchy using a third-party cable for a power cable. So now I go to plan B. I texted my friend and asked him if he had a spare SATA cable hanging around anywhere. He replied a few minutes later, said he did have an extra one and to come pick it up. So that's what I did. Now I'm all happy because I don't have to go buy a new power supply. So when I get home, I plug the cable into the power supply and I noticed that it was a little hard to plug in, but I still didn't have to force it. So I got everything plugged in. I went around and pressed the power button. The computer turns on for like 2 seconds and then I hear a pop and it shuts off. So I'm like, what's going on? I know I plugged everything in. Then I look around the back side of the case and I realize I just messed up big time. You see, the worst part about this whole situation is I knew better than to do what I did. But I wanted it to work, so I didn't even think twice about what I was doing. Now if you're still confused about how I burnt my hard drive up, good. I'm about to teach you a very important lesson. Never ever 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 mix cables from 2 different power supplies. They are not interchangeable. You see, if you look on the inside of 2 different power supply connectors, they are not the same. Now because the pins on each cable are different, you could be sending a 12-volt rail to where a blank is supposed to be. As you can imagine, nothing good can ever come from that. That's a really simple explanation, but the moral of the story is don't ever mix PSU cables, ever. Now because of this, I lost my 2 TB hard drive that my games and my YouTube exports and my raw footage was on. I'm kind of salty about the raw footage, but it is what it is. Thankfully, my operating system is on my SSD, so I didn't lose that. I started to order a new 2 TB hard drive, but I changed my mind and I ordered an M.2 instead. M.2s don't need to be powered by SATA, and they're a lot faster than a traditional hard drive. Now I got extremely lucky. I could have fried my whole PC, and that would have been a lot of money down the drain. I did end up swapping my power supply out because I don't know what damage was done to it, if any. And I do need more SATA cables for the extra 3 fans I'm going to be getting. I'll probably use the power supply in the future for another project after I make sure it's working properly. So for part 3, we're going to be using cable mods for all the cables in this case. We will be getting a back plate for this graphics card because it looks really bad. I'm not sure why it doesn't have a back plate. We might just get those last 2 sticks of 32 GB RAM. And if you haven't noticed, this case is supposed to have lights at the bottom, but it's not turned on right now. That's because I ran out of USB headers on my motherboard. So I will be getting a splitter and we're going to take care of that in the next video. We're going to be adding 3 more fans and we're going to be setting up the software for the AIO and also setting up the software for the fans. Guys, thank you for watching. Normally, I'm your tech hero, but today, I'm just that tech guy. Smash that like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel to see more content like this. And I will see you in the next video.